The forest held its breath as blood stained the moonlit leaves. Elara stumbled forward, her hands slick with crimson, her eyes locked on the still body of Kale, her Métis, his chest unmoving, pierced by a blade she didn't recognize. The air reeked of betrayal and iron. Behind her, footsteps crunched. She turned slowly. The man standing there was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark feral eyes glowing gold. Drenched in shadow, he whispered, "You were always mine." The ache in Elara's chest deepened, not just grief, but something unholy stirred. Her wolf screamed in confusion. That man, Eric, was the one who ended Kale's life. Yet the bond that now yanked at her soul didn't lie. He was her fated mate. She fell to her knees, trembling, unable to speak. Her vision blurred as Eric stepped closer, expression unreadable. "I didn't want this," he said, voice low and cracking. But want had no place here. Elara's scream tore through the trees, raw and guttural. The forest didn't answer. Silence stretched long and cruel, only broken by the beat of her grief-stricken heart. Before the blood, before the screams, there was a promise. Kale held Elara's hands in the moonlight just hours earlier, his smile soft, his voice steady. "Tonight we're one," he said, and her heart soared with innocence only fate could mock. The village had gathered, torches lit around the sacred stone, their elders chanting the binding rite. Elara felt her wolf stir within, excited, aligned. Kale's warmth grounded her. They were born to be together, or so they thought. He pressed his forehead to hers. "We'll never part," he whispered. But the wind shifted strangely, and a crow called thrice. The old omen. Their eyes met with shared unease. She tried to ignore it. Love should have drowned out warning signs. That night, under stars thick as fate's ink, she promised him eternity. Her dress was ivory, woven with ancestral silk, his tunic embroidered with their crest. They danced barefoot in the clearing. Nothing hinted at tragedy. Only stars and foolish trust. It began with a growl, low and unnatural. The binding rite froze mid-chant. All eyes turned to the trees where darkness pooled unnaturally. A beast? No. A man stepped through. Eric. Not invited, not welcome. His presence was like oil on fire. The elders sensed it too. Chanting halted. Kale stood in front of Elara, protective. Eric's eyes met Elara's. Recognition. A slow, terrible pull began to form between them. Elara gasped. Kale turned in confusion. Eric didn't blink. "Leave," one elder commanded, but Eric didn't move. "I found her," he said, and Elara's legs trembled. Kale bared his teeth. "She's mine." Eric's voice was calm, too calm. "She was never yours." That was when it broke, like the sky cracked open. The crowd erupted in panic. Elara's heart shattered once, twice, endlessly. Kale lunged. Eric moved like lightning. No one could stop them. They were wolves beneath skin, blades flashing, snarls echoing. Elara screamed for them to stop, but rage had silenced reason. Blood marked the soil quickly. Eric was stronger, faster, but Kale fought with everything. "You'll never have her," Kale spat. Eric struck him down, chest heaving. Kale crumpled. Time shattered. Elara ran to him. The silence was immediate and absolute. His blood soaked her dress. "No!" she cried, voice breaking. Eric didn't flee. He stood there, shattered. The pull between them flared. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. But fate didn't ask permission. Elara looked up into the eyes of the man who killed her mate. And her wolf howled, for hate, for pain, for something twisted. She didn't speak. Not for hours. Elders came, dragging Kale's body away. The ceremonial site was stained. Eric hadn't moved. Elara sat, dazed, her wolf coiled tight inside her. Her hands were red, her lips trembling, her soul torn. "Elara," Arik whispered. She looked at him, once. Only once. The bond was alive between them, pulsing, cruel. "Don't," she croaked. "You don't get to say my name." He flinched. The villagers glared at him with hatred. Yet he didn't leave. "You don't understand," he said. "I didn't choose this." Elara laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You killed my mate." Silence. Then she stood. "And fate thinks I belong to you?" Her voice cracked like lightning. "Let fate rot." The village awoke to a silence heavier than any dawn before. Elara's world had shattered into fragments she could not gather. Her nights were haunted by Kale's fading voice and Eric's piercing gaze. The elders whispered that fate had spun a cruel web, one that bound her to the man who had ended her world. Elara refused to accept it. Her wolf growled in defiance, desperate to break the chains that pulled her toward Eric's darkness. Yet the bond simmered beneath her skin, a constant, agonizing throb. "You don't get to own me," she muttered in the empty cottage, her breath cold against cracked wooden beams. Outside, shadows lengthened as the sun set, but inside, a storm brewed. Memories of Kale clashed violently with the emerging truth. Arik was no villain but a fractured soul desperate for redemption. The question lingered, could love rise from such devastation, or was Elara destined to burn in its ashes? Morning brought no peace. Elara walked through the village like a ghost, faces blurring past her, whispers like knives slicing the air. The bond's pulse was relentless, dragging her to Eric's shadowed corner of the world. When she found him, standing by the river's edge, his golden eyes avoided hers. "I never wanted this," Arik said quietly. She turned away, voice sharp. "Then why?" He stepped closer, voice thick with regret. "Because in this cruel fate, you're the only light that can save me from darkness." Elara's heart, though battered, clenched at his words. Yet betrayal festered too deeply to forgive. Her wolf paced restlessly beneath her skin, torn between instincts and something unknown, something dangerously like hope. The elders summoned Elara at dusk, their faces grave, and lined with ancient sorrow. "The bond cannot be broken," the oldest said, voice low and steady. "You are tied to Eric by blood and spirit. The past cannot undo what fate has chosen." Elara's chest tightened, disbelief crashing over her like a wave. "Then why," she whispered, "why make me suffer this torment?" The elders exchanged looks, silent and solemn. "Because the balance must be preserved. The wolf's legacy demands sacrifice." Her wolf howled in pain, echoing her human anguish. The village's expectations, the unseen chains of destiny, each tightened with cruel precision. Elara clenched her fists, resolve flickering. She would fight the bond, fight fate itself, or be consumed by it. Night draped the village in a velvet silence, broken only by distant howls. Elara stood alone on the hilltop, eyes lifted toward the stars, searching for answers in their cold fire. The bond's pull throbbed within her chest, a relentless ache she could neither escape nor embrace. A sudden presence stirred behind her. Eric's voice was a whisper on the wind. "I can't lose you too." She didn't turn. "Then don't ask me to stay." Their shadows tangled under the moonlight, two wolves caught in a dance neither wanted, but both could not resist. Their past was stained with death, their future, a fragile thread woven with hope and pain. Elara's heart shattered anew, torn between vengeance and a love that refused to die. The dawn found Elara in the forest, rain pattering on leaves, soaking her to the bone. Her wolf paced restlessly, a wild echo of her fractured soul. Memories of Kale flickered like shadows in the storm, his smile, his touch, the promise broken by death. Yet beneath the grief, a strange warmth bloomed when she thought of Arik. Could the man who killed her mate also be the one to heal her? She clenched her fists against the cold voice, barely a whisper. "If fate binds us, then I will walk this path. On my terms." The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if love could rise from the ruins, or if all would burn in the fires of betrayal. The village whispered darker rumors now. Elara's defiance only deepened the divide between her and those who once called her kin. She wandered through abandoned paths, seeking answers from shadows. Eric followed quietly, his presence a constant ache. "Why do you resist what you cannot change?" he asked one cold evening. Elara's voice was steel, "Because surrender is death." Beneath the layers of rage and sorrow, a fragile trust began to take root, an ember fighting the storm. Yet every glance between them carried the weight of loss and betrayal. Their wolves growled beneath their skin, war raging inside them both. The night swallowed their footsteps as they faced a truth neither could deny. Their fates were tangled, inextricable, and painfully binding. A sudden storm forced them to shelter beneath ancient oaks, rain thrumming like war drums on leaves. The fire between them was raw, volatile. Elara's voice broke the silence. "You killed him. How do you expect me to forgive?" Eric's hands clenched around a wet branch. "Because I loved him too." Confession stunned her, fracturing her armor. "He was my brother in everything but blood." Lightning cracked above, as past wounds bled anew. They sat close but miles apart, separated by grief yet bound by an unspoken need. The storm outside mirrored the tempest within, fury, pain, and an aching hope that maybe, just maybe, healing could begin. Days blurred as Elara and Eric journeyed deeper into the wild lands beyond the village, forced by suspicion and exile. Silence filled the spaces between them until one night, under a sky painted with stars, Eric spoke softly. "There is more you don't know about that night." Elara's heart seized. "Tell me." He breathed out, a secret carved in pain. "Kale's death was not meant to be. It was a betrayal from within our own ranks." Shock and fury warred in Elara's eyes. "Then who?" Eric's gaze dropped, haunted. "Someone we both trusted." The revelation shattered her world anew. Trust was a fragile thread, and now it snapped, sending her spiraling into a darker abyss. Betrayal's shadow lengthened as Elara confronted the village council, her voice ringing with fury and accusation. "You sent him to die. You sacrificed Kale to protect your secrets." The elders' faces were masks of denial and fear. "You know nothing of what must be done," the chief intoned. But Elara's resolve was iron. "I will find the truth, even if it burns down the very walls you hide behind." The council's silence was a thunderous confession. Outside, her wolf prowled restless, howling to the moon, echoing her vow for justice and vengeance. The path ahead was treacherous, but Elara would walk it alone if she must. That night, Elara's dreams twisted into dark visions of Kale's death. Faces masked in shadow, whispers of conspiracy, and Eric's anguished face torn between love and guilt. She woke gasping, heart pounding. Eric sat beside her, silent but present. "We must unravel the lies before they consume us," he said quietly. Elara's gaze hardened. "No more secrets, no more bloodshed." Her wolf growled softly beneath her skin, a reminder of the battles still to come. Together, they faced the unknown, a fragile alliance forged in grief, pain, and the desperate hope for redemption. Elara stood on the edge of the cliff, the wind whipping her auburn hair as dark clouds churned above. The village's betrayal weighed heavily on her heart, but the greatest shock was yet to come. A secret buried deep in the past was about to unravel, a truth that would shatter everything she believed. Eric approached quietly, his golden eyes reflecting the storm's fury. "There's something you need to know," he said, voice low but steady. Elara's breath caught. "Tell me." He hesitated, then revealed, "Kale was not just your mate by bond. He was part of a hidden legacy, one that ties us all together." Her world tilted. "What legacy?" she demanded, fury and fear clashing. "One that changes everything," Eric replied, his gaze fierce. The cliff seemed to tremble beneath their feet as fate's cruel hand tightened its grip. That night, by a flickering fire deep in the forest, Eric unveiled the truth. Kale's bloodline carried an ancient power coveted by dark forces. Your mate's death was orchestrated to keep you apart, to control that power, Eric confessed. Elara's heart thundered. So all this pain was a trap? She asked, voice trembling. Yes, Eric admitted. And we're both pawns in a game bigger than us. Tears blurred her vision, mixing grief with rage. Then we must fight, she whispered fiercely. Together. The firelight danced across their determined faces, binding two souls torn by loss but united by a newfound purpose. The path ahead was perilous, but the spark of hope was ignited. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation. Elara trained with fierce determination, her wolf form stirring stronger with every passing moment. Eric guided her through ancient rituals and combat, his patience tested by her stubborn fire. You must embrace both halves of yourself, he warned, or be consumed. Elara's resolve hardened. I will not be broken. Yet beneath her strength, doubts gnawed relentlessly. Could she truly trust the man who killed Kale? Their stolen bond was a double-edged sword, both curse and salvation. Together, they prepared to face enemies lurking in the shadows, enemies that would stop at nothing to claim the legacy. A sudden attack shattered their fragile peace. Dark figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes cold and merciless. Elara and Eric fought back to back, blades flashing beneath moonlight. Hold the line, Eric shouted, voice fierce. Elara's heart pounded as steel clashed and sparks flew. Every strike was a battle not only for survival but for the truth they had unearthed. In the chaos, a shadowy figure slipped past, vanishing before Elara could react. The enemy was closer than they feared. Betrayal was not just in the past but lurking still. Bloodied but unyielding, Elara knew this war had only just begun. As dawn broke, Elara tended to wounds, her body aching but her spirit unbroken. Eric approached, his golden eyes softening. You fought well, he said quietly. Elara met his gaze, searching for the truth beneath the pain. We fight because we must, she replied. But I still don't know if I can forgive you. Silence hung heavy between them, filled with unspoken regrets and fragile hopes. The bond pulsed between them, a relentless force neither could deny. Their journey was far from over, but with every breath, Elara's heart edged closer to an uncertain future, where love and hate entwined in a dance as old as fate itself. The final confrontation was upon them. Elara's breath came in sharp bursts as she faced the shadowy figure behind Kale's death, a man cloaked in darkness and deceit. You betrayed us all, she spat, her voice cold but trembling with rage. The man's eyes gleamed, unrepentant. Sacrifices must be made, he said, voice like poison. Eric stood beside Elara, his golden eyes burning with fierce loyalty. Not this time, Eric growled. The battle was brutal, steel against steel, wills clashing as fiercely as blades. Elara felt every strike as a release of pain and fury. She was no longer the broken girl on the cliff, but a force bound by love, loss, and fierce determination. When the enemy faltered, she did not hesitate. This ends now, she declared, voice ringing with finality. The fight surged through the ruins, echoes of clashing blades, mingling with cries of pain and rage. Elara's heart hammered in her chest as she parried and struck, every move sharpened by grief and desperation. You took everything from me, she shouted. The enemy sneered, and I will take what remains. Eric's voice broke through the chaos. Together! They moved as one, two halves of a whole, fierce and unyielding. But even as victory seemed near, Elara's mind was torn between justice and the unexpected tenderness growing between her and Eric. The war was not just against enemies outside, but the battle raging within her soul. At the climax, Elara's blade caught the enemy's throat. Silence fell like a shroud. The man's eyes widened in shock, then hardened with finality. You don't understand what you've unleashed, he whispered. Elara's grip tightened. I understand more than you know. This ends now. As he crumpled, Arik stepped forward, voice heavy with both relief and sorrow. We've paid a high price. Elara looked skyward, feeling the weight of every lost moment. The battle was won, but her journey was far from over. The shadows of the past still lingered, and the bond between her and Arik pulsed with an uncertain future. The dawn after the battle was quiet, but heavy with new beginnings. Elara and Arik sat beneath a sprawling oak, bruised and battered yet alive. We fought not just for revenge but for a future, Elara said softly. Arik nodded, one where we choose who we become. Their eyes met, unspoken words passing between them. Hope, fear, and the fragile thread of trust. The bond pulsed quietly beneath their skin, a reminder that even in darkness light could be found. The scars they bore were proof of battles past, and the strength to face what was yet to come. For the first time, Elara allowed herself to wonder if love could bloom in the ruins of pain. Elara stood at the edge of the village once more, the weight of the past heavy but her spirit renewed. The villagers watched, some with fear, others with tentative respect. Arik stepped beside her, silent support in golden eyes. Whatever comes next, Elara said quietly, we face it together. The bond was no longer a chain, but a lifeline, a promise forged through pain, sacrifice, and unexpected love. The sun rose behind them, painting the sky with hues of fire and hope. Her wolf howled softly in the distance, a call not of sorrow but of a new beginning. The story was far from over, but Elara was ready. For the first time, fate felt like a choice. The village was healing, but Elara's heart remained a battlefield. Though the war had ended, the scars, both seen and unseen, ran deep. She walked through the market square, faces familiar yet distant. Arik stayed by her side, a silent guardian, his golden eyes watchful. Are you ready to trust again? He asked softly. Elara's gaze flickered, a storm of emotions beneath her calm. I don't know if I ever will. Yet in that moment, she allowed herself a fragile hope. The bond pulsed quietly, no longer a chain but a lifeline connecting two fractured souls. The path ahead was uncertain, but Elara stepped forward with cautious strength, ready to face whatever fate had yet to unfold. Evening shadows stretched long across the fields, as Elara and Arik sat by a quiet stream. Their conversation was sparse but charged, words weighted with unspoken truths. The past will always be a part of us, Elara said, her voice low. But it doesn't have to define our future. Arik nodded slowly, eyes reflecting the fading light. We've been given a second chance, fragile but real. Silence settled between them, comfortable and rare. The bond that once tore them apart now whispered promises of healing. As stars began to pierce the twilight, Elara allowed herself to imagine a future where love, trust, and forgiveness might coexist, if only they dared to believe. A sudden storm swept through the valley, lightning fracturing the sky and rain pounding the earth. Elara stood at the forest edge, eyes lifted to the heavens, feeling the storm's wild energy course through her veins. Her wolf howled in unison with the thunder, a fierce cry of freedom and defiance. Arik appeared beside her, drenched but steady, voice strong despite the tempest. No matter what comes, we face it together. She met his gaze, the bond burning brighter than the storm. Together, she echoed. In that moment, rain soaked and wind lashed. Elara embraced the fierce wildness within, ready to forge a new destiny forged from fire and storm. Morning light crept softly through the canopy, as Elara and Arik ventured deeper into uncharted woods, seeking answers and strength. Each step carried the weight of their journey, loss, betrayal, and hard-won trust. We must face what lies ahead without fear, Arik urged. Elara's eyes shone with resolve. I'm ready to fight not just for us, but for all who suffer in silence. Their bond, once a curse, now felt like a beacon, guiding them through darkness. As they moved forward side by side, the forest seemed to breathe with renewed life. a silent witness to the power of resilience and hope born from pain. Night wrapped the village in a blanket of stars as Alara stood atop the hill, the wind whispering secrets around her. The bond pulsed faintly, steady and strong, a reminder of the journey still ahead. Eric joined her silently, his presence a comforting weight. "Whatever happens, we face it as one," he vowed. Alara nodded, a rare smile breaking through her weariness. "Fate may bind us, but it won't break us." Together, they gazed into the infinite night, two souls entwined by pain, love, and unyielding hope. The future was unwritten, but for the first time it felt theirs to shape. The village gathered in the great hall for the final reckoning, eyes filled with anticipation and unease. Alara stood tall, her auburn hair cascading over her shoulders, face resolute yet tempered by all she had endured. Eric remained close, his golden eyes steady, silent strength beside her. "Tonight the past is laid bare," Alara began, voice steady but fierce. "We have faced betrayal, loss, and darkness. But from this, a new path emerges, one forged by truth and choice." The crowd murmured, some skeptical, others hopeful. The bond between Alara and Eric pulsed openly now, no longer a secret but a symbol of survival and unity. "We will no longer be prisoners of fate, but masters of our destiny." A hush fell over the room as the weight of her words settled deep. Whispers of doubt and fear rippled through the crowd, but Alara's voice rose above them. "We have all suffered under lies and shadows. It is time to heal." Eric stepped forward, voice commanding yet gentle. "Together we must rebuild what was broken, our homes, our hearts, and our trust." Alara nodded, her gaze meeting his in a silent vow. "This bond between us is no longer a curse but a promise that even in darkness, light endures." The villagers shifted, some nodding slowly, others still wary. Yet the seed of change had been planted. The hall seemed to breathe with renewed hope, a fragile but undeniable spark. Outside, under a sky heavy with stars, Alara and Eric walked silently through the village square. The bond between them thrummed with new strength, a testament to the trials they had endured. "Do you believe in us now?" Eric asked softly. Alara glanced at him, a small smile breaking through. "I believe in what we can build together, beyond the past, beyond pain." The village lanterns glowed softly, their light mingling with the moon. A gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming wildflowers, symbols of resilience and rebirth. In that moment, Alara felt the first true taste of peace. The path ahead remained uncertain, but they would walk it side by side. The final test came quietly, in the form of a lone wolf howling on the distant hills, a call that echoed through Alara's soul. Her wolf stirred within, not as a prisoner, but as a guardian. "It's time," she whispered, voice steady and sure. Eric took her hand, his grip warm and unwavering. "Whatever comes, we face it together." The bond pulsed brighter than ever, a living thing born of fire, loss, and hope. Alara closed her eyes, feeling the strength of both wolves within them. She was no longer broken, no longer defined by pain. She was whole, fierce, and ready to write the final chapter of their story. In the silence that followed, Alara opened her eyes and spoke one simple line that would echo forever. "I waited all that time, and he was standing right there." The words hung in the air, charged with love, pain, and the impossible bond that had survived death itself. Eric smiled softly, his golden eyes shimmering with unshed tears. The village breathed as one, caught in the moment where fate was rewritten, not by sorrow, but by the fierce light of a love that refused to die. The story ended not with goodbye but with a beginning, forever etched in the hearts of those who dared to believe.